Okay, so percent of a number. First things first is we use what's called a percent proportion. So do we all remember proportion?
No.
Okay, there's a specific type of proportion. It's called a percent proportion, which is what we are going to use to solve percent of a number problems. So a percent proportion is one ratio or fraction compares part of a quantity to a whole quantity. So percent proportion, one ratio or fraction compares part of a quantity to a whole quantity. So here's what I mean by that. Okay, we have with percent proportion, with all proportions, we have one ratio equal to another ratio, right? A fraction equal to a fraction, correct? Okay, it is always part over whole. Whatever your part that you're talking about out of the whole possible. The total always goes on bottom, the whole number always goes on bottom, whatever the part of it goes on top. So for instance, if you got a 4 out of 5 on a test, how would we write that? 4 over 5, right? Okay, because 4 is your part, and your whole goes on bottom. Then the way that it works is then it's always your percentage. So what did you guys just tell me? 4/5 is what percent? 80. And 80% always goes over what number as a fraction, you guys? So then 100 always goes on bottom. So the way that you remember this is part over whole equals percent over 100. That never, ever changes. It is always whatever your part out of whatever your whole is equals whatever that percent is over 100. Or another phrase that is very common, which is actually easier for a lot of students to use, is you can use the phrase is over of equals percent over 100. Is over of equals percent over 100. That's a phrase you're going to want to memorize. The more you do these problems, it'll come second nature to you. Do you guys remember when we did that walkabout around the room and there was those percent problems and half of you were like, I have no idea what you are talking about?
Oh, yeah.
That's this. Okay? You would see a problem that said something like this. What number is 40% of 120? What number is 40% of 120? Hold on, guys. There we go. See that a little bit better? So if you remember your is over of equals percent over 100, you set it up as a proportion. So the first thing you always do is, just like always, you circle those key numbers. You underline your key numbers or what they mean. So what's one of my numbers? What? 40%. So I'm going to box in that 40% because that's one of my key numbers. What's another one of my key numbers? 120. And what word do you see in front of the 120? Of. So I'm going to box in that of with that 120. Then I underline what I'm trying to find. What do you think I'm trying to find in this problem? Number. And number is is. So I'm going to underline my is and my number. That's what I want to know. I want to know what is that number. So if I see my is over of equals percent over 100, and I'm going to rewrite that down. Then it's like variables. Is a variable. What do I put in its spot? Of is a variable. What do I put in its spot? Percent is a variable. What do I put in its spot based on what the problem is telling me? So 40 is my what? Percent. So I put 40 in my percent spot. I don't need my percentage sign, but I need 40 in the percent spot. Does that make sense? Then I have 120. What did we say the 120 is? The of, because of 120. Of goes with your 120, so I put the 120 in place of the of. What number is never going to change, you guys? The 100. That number is always going to stay there. That number on bottom, your denominator, it's never ever going to change. Now, what am I searching for? What do I want to know? What do I want to know? I want to know my is. What do I put in place of is? X. I put a variable. Do you think it matters what variable goes in its place? No, you can put any letter of the alphabet you want. Yeah, unless it tells you specifically. You are correct. So I have x over 120 equals 40 over 100. How do we solve this? I gotta cross multiply. X times 100 is what, everyone? 100x. 100x is equal to 120 times 40.
Which is 4,800. No, 4,880. It's 4,880. Oh, wait, 40 because there are 2 zeros.
Good, there are 2 zeros, so we got to make sure we have those 2 zeros. 12 times 4 is 48. Add the 2 zeros, we get 4,800, or 4,800 is another way people say that. Now what do I do? By? I divide by 100. And luckily for us, this math is very simple. 4,800 divided by 100 is just
48.
So what number is 40% of 120? 48. Is it a percentage? No. It's just asking for a number. If I asked for a percent, then I'd have to put a percent sign. But I already have my percent, don't I? I have 40. So I don't want another percent. I just want a number. So, if you got a 48 out of 120 on a test, what grade did you just get? A 40%. Because you got a 48 out of 100. 48 out of 120. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. What if we did this one? What percent of 15 is 9? What percent of 15 is 9? Now, I know that we could do this one in different ways that I've taught you, right? But we're learning this way right now, so do we have to do this method? Yes, we do. So, what should I circle as one of my key numbers? What's one of my key numbers? Of 15. What's another one of my key numbers? Is 9. What am I trying to find? Alright, everyone set up your is over of equals percent over 100 for me. With the numbers, obviously. Alright, somebody tell me, how'd we set it up? What over what equals what over what, Kansas?
X over 15 equals 9 over 100.
No. Riley?
9 over 15 equals X over 100.
There we go. 9 over 15 equals X over 100. So, here's why. My of is my what? 15. So I have to make sure that 15's in that of spot. Is.
9.
So 9 has to go in that is spot. I am looking for my percent. So now instead of the X being where the is, like it was in problem 1, my X is in the percentage spot because that is what I'm trying to find. Does that make sense, guys?
No.
It's all just based on where your stuff is located. So what's my of? So I put my 15 in that bottom spot right there. What's my is? So I put that 9 where my is. I don't know my percent, so X has to go in that percent spot. 100 always stays the same. So now we do what? Cross multiply. What's 9 times 100? What is 15 times X?
15x.
What do I do now?
Divide by 15.
A little bit harder in the math department. Not compared to the first problem. Not as hard, but still not as easy, but not too terrible. So finish solving that for me. What do we get, everyone?
60%.
Good. It is 60, but then we have to remember we're looking for that percent, so I have to add a percent sign, so my answer is 60%. So if you got a 9 out of 15 on a test, what percentage did you get?
60%.
60%. Alright. We're going to do one more example in our notebook, and then we'll do some practice, okay, guys? Not in our notebook. So, we have done one where we find the is, one where we find the percent. So what do you think the last example we need to find is? We got to find the of. So 18 is 25% of what number? So first things first, guys, circle those key words. This is one students mess up on because everything's always been in front of besides that percent sign, right? Well, 18, is 18 my is, my of, or my percent? Is. This case it happens to be right behind it. And that's okay. It could also say what number is 18 something 25% of. So they can change up the wording on you too. What's 25 is my what? That's my percent. What am I trying to find? I'm trying to find my of. So set up your proportion for me. Is over of equals percent over 100. Alright. Kansas, how did you set this one up, sweetie?
I put 18 over X and 25 over 100.
Perfect. Does that make sense now, girl? So you guys should all have 18 over X equals 25 over 100.
Yeah.
What should you be doing now? 18 times 100 is?
1800.
X times 25 is?
25x.
What do we do now? By? Once again, not terrible math, but still have to do a little bit of math to figure this out. What are we getting, you guys?
72.
Is this one a percentage?
No.
Why not?
Because the next number.
Good, I'm finding my of. So if you got an 18 out of 72 on a test, what percent did you get? 25%. Okay? Questions?
No.
So those are the 3 types of problems that you are going to see. Is that clear? Okay, so I'm going to stop this.